Remington Harrow, a successful software engineer, and his wife Cordelia, talented interior designer, seemed to have a perfect marriage. Their home, with its neat lawn and white picket fence, showed their happy life. But beneath, trouble was emerging. Remington's growing interest in a forbidden fantasy would lead to a series of events that would destroy their perfect life and end in tragedy. What started as a mutual exploration of desires would turn into a storm of jealousy, betrayal, and finally murder. Remington Harrow was born in 1985 to a middle-class family in Eugene. From an early age, he displayed a keen intellect and a fascination with computers. His parents, both educators, nurtured his interests, and by the time he entered high school, Remington was already coding his own programs. Despite his academic prowess, he struggled socially, often feeling awkward and out of place among his peers. Cordelia Astor, born in 1987, grew up in a wealthy family in Seattle, Washington. The youngest of 3 children, her parents, successful real estate developers, provided her with every opportunity, including art classes and interior design courses. Their paths crossed in 2005 at Reed College in Portland. Remington, junior computer science major, literally bumped into Cordelia, a freshman art student in the campus library. He was immediately smitten by her radiant smile and effortless charm. Cordelia, in turn, found herself drawn to Remington's quiet intensity and brilliant mind. Cordelia and Remington's relationship started with a whirlwind romance filled with intellectual talks, late-night coding sessions, and exploring Portland's art scene. Despite their different backgrounds, they complemented each other perfectly and got married in 2009. Their wedding in the picturesque Willamette Valley vineyard was a joyous event, marking the beginning of a seemingly bright future. Remington had a high-paying job at a tech startup, and Cordelia was making a name for herself in interior design. For the first few years, their marriage seemed perfect. They bought a dream home in Oakland, traveled the world, and made many friends. Remington's career soared, and he became a senior engineer, while Cordelia's design business flourished with her work featured in magazines. From the outside, they appeared to have it all: successful careers, a beautiful home, and a strong marriage. However, as they neared their 10th wedding anniversary, they felt a growing restlessness. The passion that once burned brightly had dimmed to a comfortable, sometimes monotonous glow. Remington became fascinated by online discussions about alternative sexual lifestyles, particularly cuckolding. He was drawn to the idea of watching his wife with another man, which awakened something within him. At first, he kept these thoughts to himself, ashamed and confused. Cordelia, noticing his distraction and late nights at the computer, grew concerned and asked if everything was all right. After weeks of internal struggle, Remington confessed his newfound interest to Cordelia over a bottle of wine. To his surprise, Cordelia listened with an open mind. Although she had initial reservations, she was intrigued by the idea of being desired by another man. This conversation marked a turning point in their marriage, as they decided to explore this fantasy together. They carefully started exploring cuckolding, making rules and setting limits. Finding the right person was challenging, but they eventually met Thaddeus Blackwood at a charity art auction. Thaddeus, a charming and elegant art gallery owner, was immediately drawn to Cordelia. After a few meetings, Cordelia and Remington agreed he might be the perfect candidate. Cordelia and Thaddeus met several times for coffee to discuss collaborations, which Remington eagerly listened to. Fueling his fantasy, their first evening together was meticulously planned, with Remington and Cordelia preparing an intimate setting. Thaddeus arrived with flowers and scotch, and the evening was filled with charm and laughter. As the night progressed, the tension grew, and Cordelia and Thaddeus went upstairs, leaving Remington with a mix of arousal and jealousy. Afterward, Remington felt both satisfied and uneasy. The initial excitement led to more frequent and intense meetings with Thaddeus, who became more involved in their lives. He joined them for dinners, art shows, and weekends at their home. Over time, Remington noticed Cordelia's behavior change. She seemed distracted and dressed up more often, and she ended phone calls abruptly. Their private moments together dwindled, causing Remington to worry and check her phone and social media. One July evening, Remington planned a romantic dinner to reconnect and address his concerns. Cordelia came home late and disheveled, confirming Remington's fears. During an argument, Remington accused her of falling for Thaddeus and ruining their marriage. Cordelia admitted she had been with Thaddeus, which devastated Remington. Despite her tears and explanation that Thaddeus made her feel alive, she was torn between her feelings for Thaddeus and her loyalty to Remington. In anger, Remington demanded Cordelia end things with Thaddeus, but she refused, arguing that it was his idea to explore their arrangement. The argument escalated, and Remington smashed a wine glass against the wall, shocking Cordelia. She retreated to the guest bedroom, locking the door, while Remington spent the night on the couch, troubled and unable to sleep. After their confrontation, Cordelia and Remington barely spoke and moved around like ghosts. Cordelia spent most of her time working and meeting Thaddeus, while Remington stayed home, drinking and obsessively checking her phone and computer for evidence. His frustration turned into violent fantasies about confronting Thaddeus. One day, he found himself holding a wrench in the garage, thinking it would be easy to end it all. Horrified, he dropped the wrench, but the idea grew stronger. By nightfall, his dark thoughts had turned into a plan. On August 15th, the oppressive heat and looming storm reflected Remington's inner turmoil. Awakening with a throbbing headache from another night of heavy drinking, he was determined to confront Thaddeus and regain control of his crumbling life and marriage. He spent the morning meticulously preparing, showering, shaving, and dressing as if for a crucial business meeting rather than a violent showdown. In the garage, he retrieved the wrench he had kept for days, wrapping it in a towel and stowing it in a gym bag. Cordelia left for work at 9:00 a.m., barely acknowledging Remington. Once she was gone, he drove to Thaddeus's gallery, parking across the street and observing Thaddeus as he charmed his employees and prepared to close. Remington waited in his car until Thaddeus bid his last customer goodbye and began locking up. With trembling hands, Remington grabbed the gym bag and crossed the street. As Thaddeus locked the gallery door, he was surprised to see Remington. "Is everything all right?" Thaddeus asked with a wary smile. Remington unleashed the wrench in a fit of jealousy, insecurity, and anger. When it ended, Thaddeus lay motionless, and Remington stood over him, the wrench covered in blood. The magnitude of his actions hit him hard. Desperate to cover his tracks, Remington dragged Thaddeus's body into the alley behind the gallery. In the following hours, Remington's actions were a blur. He burned his clothes, cleaned his car, and took a shower. When Cordelia returned, he greeted her with a forced cheerfulness, suggesting they order takeout and watch a movie. As they sat together with the TV on but ignored, Remington's mind raced. He fabricated an alibi, claiming he had spent the day working around the house, and showed Cordelia a cut on his hand from his supposed yard work. 2 days later, news broke that Thaddeus Blackwood, a well-known art dealer, had been found dead behind his gallery, the police investigating it as a homicide. Remington, overhearing the news at work, was pale and shaken. Detective Ilana Rossi led the swift investigation, examining Thaddeus's life and connections. It was not long before they uncovered Thaddeus's affair with Cordelia. Cordelia tried to downplay their relationship but eventually admitted it when faced with evidence. During his police interview, Remington expressed appropriate shock and sorrow, recounting his alibi in alignment with his earlier statements to Cordelia. However, Detective Rossi noticed something off about his demeanor. His grief seemed too controlled and his calm too practiced. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A homeless man who had seen a man matching Remington's description carrying a gym bag into the alley on the night of the murder. Detective Rossi's team scrutinized Remington's movements and found traffic camera footage placing his car near the gallery during the murder. Remington's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He began drinking heavily and snapping at colleagues. With evidence mounting against him, including blood traces in his car and a bloody wrench hidden in the attic, Remington was arrested. On a rainy September morning, Detective Rossi found him drunk and disheveled at home. Remington felt relieved as the deception ended. In his trial, he pled guilty to second-degree murder, admitting to jealousy and obsession. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Cordelia, devastated by the truth, divorced him, sold their house, and moved away to escape the memories and start a new life. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Thanks for watching.